please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Who's doing that? You?
What's that?
The noise?
No, not on.
Okay. This is a public hearing, public notice, Town of Granby public hearing for individuals to voice their opinion. Before you do that, name who you are and the street that you live on. Okay. Would you like to read?
It's a public notice for the Town of Granby for a public hearing. The Selectboard of the Town of Granby, in pursuit of the bylaws of the Town of Granby, Chapter 9, Section 2, will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, at 5:30 p.m. at 10 West State Street, the COA building, to present and discuss proposed amendments to the Town of Granby general bylaws. The subject matter of proposed amendments are as follows. Excuse me. General bylaws to insert chapter, that's 17? 17, section 10 of the Town of Granby general bylaws entitled Large-Scale Ground-Mounted Solar Energy Systems Moratorium, for the purpose of establishing a moratorium on the use of land or build structures for large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems that are at least 40,000 square feet in the area of 250 kW of energy production in the Town of Granby until September 30th, 2019, including amendments or modifications. The amend Chapter 18 fees, Section 1, Town Clerk, by deleting the current fee list and inserting a new fee list, including the amendments or modifications. Anyone wishing information and or to be heard of this matter should appear at the time and place designated. The complete text relative to this purpose amendment, the proposed amendment, is available for inspection during regular business hours at the Select Board's office at 10B West 8th Street, Granby, Mass., and on the Town Granby website. Section 10, large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems moratorium, notwithstanding any other provision of the zoning or general bylaws to contrary to the town hereby adopts a temporary moratorium on the use of land to build structures for large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems that are at least 40,000 square feet in the area of over 250 kW of energy production. The moratorium shall be in effect through September 30th, 2019, or until such time as the town adopts zoning or general bylaws amendments that regulate large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems, whichever occurs first. During the moratorium period, the town shall undertake a planning process to address the potential impacts of a large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems in the town. Consider the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources guidance for regulating solar energy systems and shall consider adopting new zoning and general bylaws in response to these new issues. Is the town clerk here to? No?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Section 1, Town Clerk, list of fees charged in accordance to General Law C 262, Section 34. Clause 1, for filing index assignments for the benefit of creditors, the current fee is $10, proposed is $20. Clause 2, for entering an amendment of record of birth of an illegitimate child subsequently legitimized is currently $10, proposed is $20. Clause 12, for correcting errors in record of birth, current $10, proposed $20. For furnishing certificate of birth is current $6, proposed $10. Clause 13A, for furnishing an abstract copy of a record of birth, current $4, proposed $5. For entering, Clause 14, for entering delay, record of birth, current $10, proposed $20. Clause 20, for filing a certificate of person conducting business under any title other than his real name, current $20, current $20, proposed $30. Clause 21, for filing a person by conducting business under any title other than his real name of a statement of change of his residence or any discontinued retirement or withdrawn form on a change of location such as a business. Its current $10, proposed is $15. Clause 22, for furnishing certificate, copy of certificate of person conducting business under any title other than his real name or statement such person his discontinuance, retirement, or withdrawal from such business. Current $6, proposed $10. Clause 24, for recording the name and address, date, and number of a certificate issued to a person registered for the practice of, particularly in the Commonwealth. Current $20, proposed $30. Clause 29, for correcting errors in a record death, current $10, proposed $20. Clause 30, for furnishing a certificate of death, current $6, proposed $10. Clause 30A, for furnishing an abstract copy of a record of death, current $4, proposed $5. Clause 42, for entering a notice of intention of marriage and issuing certificates thereof, current $20, proposed $25. Clause 43, for entering a certificate of marriage filed by persons married out of the Commonwealth, is current $10, proposed $25. Clause 44, for issuing certificate of marriage, current is $6, proposed is $10. Clause 44A, for furnishing an abstract copy of a record of marriage, current $4, proposed $5. Clause 45, for correcting errors in a record of marriage, current $10, proposed $20. Clause 54, for recording power of attorney, current $10, proposed $25. Clause 57, for recording a certificate of registration granted to the person of engaged in a practice of authority of issuing a certificate of copy thereof, current $20, proposed $50. Clause 58, for recording the name of owner of certificate for registration of physician or osteopath in the Commonwealth, is current $20, proposed $50. Clause 62, for recording order granting location of poles, piers, conduits, alterations, transfers thereof to increase in number of wires and cables or attachments under the provisions of Section 22, Chapter 166. Its current a $40 flat rate and $10 additional fee for each street or way, including any such order. Proposed is $50 flat rate and $10 additional fee for each street or way included in such order. Clause 66, for examining records of papers relating to births, marriage, or deaths under the application of any person, the actual expense thereof, but not less than current $10, proposed $15. Clause 67, for copying and manuscript or record pertaining to a birth, marriage, or death per page is current $5, proposed is $5. Clause 69, for receiving and filing a complete inventory of all items to be included in a closing out sale, etc., $10 first page and $2 per additional page. His current proposed is $15 for first page and $2 per additional page. Clause 75, for filing a copy of written instrument of declaration by trust by trustees in association of trust or any amendment thereof as provided by Section 2, Chapter 182. Current is $20, proposed is $25. Clause 78, for recording deed of a lot or plot in a public burial place or cemetery. Current is $10, proposed is $15. Clause 79, for recording any other documents, $15 first page, $2 each additional page, which is currently $10, proposed is $15. And a voter certificate is currently $2 and proposed $2.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to read you some of the mandatory Massachusetts laws governing solar, ground-mounted solar, as well as definitions. So everybody, whether you're here or on GCAM, can understand what we can do and what we cannot do. So, and please hold your questions until we open it up for questions, because we need to get through this first. Okay, Mass DOER changed its solar regulations, which we knew about was going to happen, but they are effectively changed of 26 November of 2018. This moratorium will give Granby residents an opportunity to address current bylaws to maintain Granby's culture of a rural agricultural community. Additionally, to address known problem issues encountered by other municipalities concerning solar developers. The desired outcome is for the voters to uphold the current temporary moratorium until 30 September 2019 to allow the public input to their elected officials so they may prepare updated solar bylaws for voter approval at a future special town meeting. Okay, I need to define some of the state mandatory requirements. Okay, information pertaining to solar energy installation moratorium. Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, which is known as MADOER, definitions of solar systems are as follows. All roof and canopy solar systems, regardless of size, are allowed by Massachusetts right. So anything on a roof is allowed by right. All small and medium ground-mounted solar systems are also allowed by right in the state of Massachusetts. Large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems, which is defined as 40,000 square feet and or 250 kW or larger. Those are a part of our green community designation, and they are allowed by a zoning special permit, which is approved by our planning board. The current Granby solar zoning bylaws, if you wish to review them, are in paragraph 5.99 in the Granby zoning bylaws. They are general in nature, and they have currently minimum restrictions. With the new Mass DOER guidance and regulation, which became effective 26 November 2018, a temporary moratorium was put in by the Select Board for guidance. The solar developers and other municipalities with general or non-specific bylaws. In other words, communities like ours, communities like Ware, communities like Belchertown, communities like Palmer. Anybody who's got general bylaws and nothing specific, the solar developers are going there and they're saying, well, why can't I do it? So this is a chance for the residents of Granby to put in some restrictions in their bylaws. That's the whole purpose of the moratorium. For an example, in Ware, they are putting in a 140-acre solar farm, proposed, which the Ware Planning Board denied because they were cutting down 55 acres of trees. Because the Ware Planning Board denied it, this solar developer is now taking them to court, saying your bylaws are genuine nature and I can do what I want, is basically what they're saying. And I will also tell you that the cutting of 55 acres of trees, to me, is unreasonable because trees consume the carbon that's in the air and gives us more oxygen to breathe. So myself personally, I don't understand that. And Mass DOR policy strongly discourages the clear cutting of trees. But that's between where and the courts at this point in time. And also, if you people want to put some in, I'll give you some examples when we get there. Belchertown is continuing to receive solar applications because they don't have a moratorium. Last time when I talked to the selectmen at Belchertown, they had 9 new applications for solar farms in the town of Belchertown. They've only approved 1. And they have no idea how many projects are going to be either finished or approved. And they are in the process of redoing their bylaws right now without a moratorium. Thus, people are still putting applications on their desks, and they're planning their special town meeting for their new bylaws will be effective May of 2019. So our advantage is to put the moratorium in effect first so the applications don't come in. Other examples, there was lawsuits against the town of Rowe by solar developers when they got denied. Well, the solar developers withdrew the lawsuit because it was found without cause. Palmer exercised an option to purchase the land under Chapter 61A. For people who don't know it, Chapter 61A land is agricultural land. And if you want to know, 61B is open space or recreational land. When that type of land is classified under those chapters, the owners of the land only pay 25% of the regular property tax. That's a reduced amount, as you can see. But within that, if they want to bring that to residential or commercial means, a couple things have to happen. Number one, the town has what's called the first right of refusal. As soon as the town and the appropriate boards are notified of this change, the town can purchase the land for the assessed value. And that's what happened in Palmer. That's why the solar farm was not built in Palmer, because the town purchased the land. Then they had to renegotiate with the town, and they didn't like the conditions, so the solar developer left. Okay, voters to bylaws through applicable public board and committee meetings. So if the moratorium is approved by you people on 4 February, there will be meetings by different committees, different boards, depending on what type of bylaw the voters wish modified. And I strongly attend that you attend those public meetings to get your input in. This public hearing is before you now because it's mandatory, because the bylaw putting in the moratorium is required to have a 2/3 vote, and it's required to have a public hearing before it goes to special town meeting. Not all articles require a public hearing, but this particular one does, and also the other one Mr. Sexton talked about. Okay, with a special town meeting, if the town does not approve the temporary moratorium to 30 September 2019, then everything just goes away and we use the current generic bylaws we have. If the town approves the solar moratorium until 30 September 2019, again, the voters have an opportunity to have input into the changes of the bylaws. Okay, I'm going to read some of the examples that we have here, acquired from other towns and stuff that they put in. And if you want to ask questions at this time, you can, because I've read all the mandatory things. One of the big things you have to realize when you change a bylaw, the bylaw limitations cannot be unreasonable. Now, what's the definition of unreasonable? That's determined by the State Attorney General's office. But most of the time they work on precedents. So if you want to be unreasonable putting your bylaws, they're going to get overturned. Okay, here's one of the first ones. You can limit the locations of a large-scale ground-mounted solar energy system per zoning. The same way that the people did in this town when they did the marijuana moratorium. Recreational marijuana and the commercial sales of marijuana, recreational marijuana, can only be done in certain zoning districts. You can do that with solar, large-scale solar, if you so wish. You can limit the size of a large-scale ground-mounted solar system above 250 kW and its footprint. What I mean by the footprint, in addition to the area the solar developer puts the panels in, they generally look around for the tallest tree. And they take the height of the tallest tree by 2.5. And that's how much additional area has to be cleared away from the solar panels so they get maximum exposure to generate electricity. So not only the solar panels require space, there has to be a clear cut around it so the sun can hit them all. And 250 kW or 40,000 square feet is the definition by the state of a large-scale solar installation. Could you limit it to 1 megawatts, 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts? That's up to you. Could you limit it to 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres, 20 acres, whatever? That's up to you. Right now, there is no limit in this town concerning the size of megawatts or concerning the size of area that can have a ground scale large mounted solar. Also, there's no limit on what locations they can be installed. If you approve on these solar, you can limit the amount of trees to be cut. Example, if the footprint is 100,000 square feet, using round numbers, you can say you cannot clear cut more than 10% of the lot. In other words, on a 100,000 square foot solar installation, they can't cut down more than 10,000 square foot of trees. So they have to be pretty much an open field for them to do it already. You could do 20%, 30%, you could do nothing. That's, again, these are just examples. You don't have to use any of these. You can come up with your own. But these are examples that other towns are using to address theirs. You can limit the exposure of solar systems. What I mean by that is they're not visible from a public way, which is defined as a street. Example of that in our town now, we already have that bylaw in 2 places. You cannot drink public beverages on the open, visible by the street. You cannot grow marijuana on your property if somebody from the street can see it. If it's behind a fence, you're in the backyard with a cookout, there's no problem. But you cannot do it visible from a public way. There are bylaws in our town that says you can't do that. With that being said, personally, I'm not against additional large-scale grounded solar installations, provided they meet the visions and goals of the town of Granby residents. And that's why we need you to participate. What do you want? And also, they have to meet the goals of Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito's administration, which these examples I give you do not violate. Okay, and we're requesting the voters to approve the current temporary large-scale ground-mounted solar energy moratorium until 30 September 2019 at the special town meeting scheduled on 4 February 2019. So the special town meeting is already scheduled for 4 February. Before that, you can decide what you want to do. The 4 February date is either yes or no to the moratorium. That's all the 4 February date is. If you say yes to the moratorium, you have and your elected public officials have to approximately 30 June of 2019 to create your new bylaws, and the voters approve them, because the State Attorney General's office wants 90 days to review them. So we have to send them off to him for 1 July to meet the 30 September date. If you want to open to any other questions, it's up to you, Steve. And you want to open up to any other questions, it's up to you.
Well, no, we haven't opened it up to questions yet.
Well, I said, if you would like to, it's up to you.
Thank you. And yes, I would. Recognize people in the audience, if anybody wants to come up and make any comments.
Seamus Connolly, 21 Ferry Hill Road, Granby.
You want to come on up?
Here?
Sure, come on up.
See you, George. I have a question. If I were to, like you said, with the solar panels, could I install them, like, say if I bought the Fugler's land on between 30 Ferry Hill and the Fugler's house, between my house and the Gray house. I'm pretty sure Glenn knows what I'm talking about. Say I bought the Fugler's land. Those trees were cut down a decade ago. Would I be able to have maybe 20% of the solar panels if the property was looked at?
Well, first you'd have to tell me what size is the land. Is it over 40,000 square feet? In other words, a builder's acre?
40 acres. 40 acres.
Okay, it's 40 acres in size. And that qualifies it as a large-scale ground-mounted solar system. And that would be depending upon what the voters vote on 4 February. If they vote no to the moratorium, you can just proceed with no restrictions.
Oh, really? Okay. That sounds, you know what I mean?
But if they put the moratorium in effect for 4 February, that gives the town residents time to enhance the current bylaws, which the solar developer would have to abide by.
Okay. So that means if I were to develop solar, which is like something I've kind of wanted to do for a while, but probably realistically would not have the money to do. I'm just putting it out there that I might want to do that in the future. This is just a scenario, ladies and gentlemen. And I also have a question. I also have a question on the. Are you guys thinking of having the solar moratorium, if it's voted on, to be at West Street School?
It'd be at the junior senior high school, correct, Mr. Martin? Yeah. Okay. The vote on 4 February will be scheduled at the junior senior high school.
No, I know that part. You know what I mean? I know that part. I meant I know that part for sure. I just was wondering if the maximum solar place you had installed was at the old West Street School.
There is no, in the current bylaws, there is no maximum size restrictions on solar in the town of Granby.
Okay.
On the current bylaws. If the people vote to put the moratorium in effect on 4 February, then the current maximum size would be determined by the voters, put into a bylaw, and voted in as such.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Jay, Stephen, Glenn, thank you very much for your time, and
Thanks for your input.
and Glenn, your daughter did very good at basketball practice today.
Any other input on? Come on up.
Leanne, we sell Kendall Street. So does this include the one for Breezy Acres, this moratorium, or is that a done deal?
No. If you pass and the voters pass the moratorium on 4 February of 2019, that affects any moratoriums that are not lawfully permitted and that is not lawfully permitted.
Okay,
So it does affect it.
okay.
And they would have to abide by whatever bylaws the town put into place.
Okay. So I see that there's 5 solar already built.
That's correct. There's currently 5 solar farms in Granby that are already built. And there is 1 solar farm in Granby which has been permitted by the planning board but has not been built yet. And that's one thing that I should also mention, that as the public, if you choose to limit the number of large-scale solar farms in Granby, that's your choice. If you want to say what you got is the maximum, that's your choice. What would happen then if somebody wanted to build a solar farm in Granby? They would have to come to a public hearing like we're doing now, then they'd have to go before a special town meeting like they did for the new school and ask your permission. One of the things that we could add to it, like we have at the town, for people who don't know it, all the municipal buildings in the town are serviced by solar electricity. 90% of all the municipal energy is solar. And with the 5 solar fields in town, when that was developed, a deal was made that the town would pay 20% below the national grid rate. So the national grid rate currently is 13 cents and change. And if you take 20% of that, the town is probably paying 10 cents and change per kilowatt, which is below you can get on the open market. So the deal that was made back then, the town is benefiting from. Could the residents say, well, if this solar is going to be developed in my town, I want it to be delivered into my town at a lower rate? That is an option. That is an option. But again, if you don't have bylaws and you don't have these people who come before you so you can address them, then you don't have those options.
Have any of the solar farms that have been built had deforestation?
I really can't answer that because they were built before I became an office. They're off of East Street and back Acre Brook,
Right.
up that area.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was much deforestation, but I really don't know. Maybe somebody else that was around at that time.
There definitely was some.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
think there was a lot, because a lot of those areas at that point had houses on them.
Right.
Houses that were taken down.
Those were the, yep,
Right.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so you know why I'm asking, because I'm on Kendall Street, and we got all the trees there, and,
And if the bylaw is put into a place, as I stated, the voters here could limit the amount of clear cutting of trees, they can limit the size of the solar field. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. But the first thing you have to do on 4 February is to vote the moratorium in place. Currently, it's in place, but we can only do so much as a time until the voters have got to bless it, if you want to call it that.
okay,
So that's what's done. The board has put the moratorium in place because of its executive authority. And now we have to go through the authority of the public hearing, now that the state has published the new regulations of 26 November of 2018. And we're on a timetable to do this public hearing, and we're on a timetable to do the special town hearing to abide by Massachusetts general law.
right,
That's exactly what we're doing. But any solar field that is currently not lawfully permitted, they will have to follow whatever new bylaws the town people create. Does that help you?
yep, definitely,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Sure, come on up.
David Randall, 225 Taylor Street. These restrictions, first of all, I'm 4 months into development. They're currently surveying the property, so what you're saying is that they cannot move forward at all.
That is correct. Until 4 February, if the voters say no to a moratorium, then the solar developer would have to wait until the bylaws are formally put into place, so the appropriate boards and committees in town would know what the new rules are.
And these blanket restrictions say you cannot cut over so many acres of trees.
That would be up to the voters at the bylaws.
I cut 250 trees a year. They're Christmas trees. I planted them, I cut them down. So you're telling me I can't cut them down if I want to put solar in?
No, the residents of Granby would be telling you you cannot cut them down per their bylaws for solar. They're not telling you you cannot cut them down for agricultural purposes of Christmas trees or anything like that.
But I could just go cut them down if I wanted.
That's your land, I
Well,
don't,
so, and the 2 acres of woods, I could just log that out if I wanted.
I don't know what the restrictions are on the total board feet before you have to get a forestry permit or not. So I can't speak what you can and can't do.
Well, opposed to what I can do. I mean,
That would be up to the bylaws as proposed by the people after 4 February. That would be all up to them.
so they just impose more restrictions.
They can impose more restrictions, and then the state attorney general's office would review them, and if the attorney general says they are not unreasonable, they become a bylaw.
Even a blanket law like that you can't cut down trees you planted, that you're cutting down anyway.
I'm not saying that you
Just saying
can,
that some of these laws sound, I mean, it's a blanket law, and I can see they don't want to cut down acres of woods, but these trees are being cut anyway, so,
But again, I can't really speak to it.
Yeah.
You know, this is
Yeah.
all what ifs, and so.
Yeah.
Again, if you're cutting down, as you say, Christmas trees, as part of your business, you're cutting down the Christmas trees for that purpose, selling for Christmas trees?
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I can cut them down to sell them as Christmas trees, but a developer can't cut them down to put in solar. They're coming down anyway.
that's up to the people who vote.
Yeah, that's what bothers me, that everybody can tell you what you can do with your land.
I don't.
Right now, we have a lot of bylaws, such as you can't have a fence within 3 feet of your neighbor's property, you have to offset it. There's bylaws where you can grow recreational marijuana. There's bylaws on how far away from a nursery, childcare, or school you can sell recreational marijuana. There's bylaws,
Those
the
don't
size of
affect
signs and everything else already in the town that give restrictions. So this is not something new of creating a restriction. The people have a right to say what they want the town to do in the majority.
Which I don't. Can I comment for a second, Gene?
Please do.
I don't think Granby's not going to vote to like restrict your Christmas trees. Seriously,
I'm not talking about restricting the Christmas trees. I'm talking
no.
about being able to do with my property what I want to do with it.
Yeah, I'd like you know,
And not having
I
other
agree with
people
you on that.
decide what's best for me.
Yeah, I agree with that too. You know, I agree with you 100% on that issue. But there's some things, you know, that you have to like regulate. Unfortunately, that's just, you know what I mean. That's just the town.
And again, these are all, we don't know what would happen on February 4th. You know, a lot of things have to be proposed beforehand, before they can vote on changes. And it could occur that the town feels, no, we don't want to change things. We want to keep them the way they are. Or yes, there are some changes that we want made, or X, Y, and Z. I know from being part of the ad hoc committee for marijuana, we went through a lot of different meetings and a lot of different venues to listen to the public for their input before we, brought it to the town floor to have people vote on it. So it'd be the exact same thing here, because everybody feels different about certain things. So we want to make sure everybody's voice is heard. And then we hopefully we get it right the first time.
Because as times change, not only the Massachusetts general laws change, but the town changes their bylaws. If you look what the state defined a large-scale solar farm as 40,000 square feet and over or not to exceed 250 kWs. Now you have solar developers going to some towns saying, I'm gonna make a 140-acre solar farm versus a 1-acre solar farm. And I'm gonna do 6 point whatever megawatts versus 250 kilowatts. That's a substantial difference.
Absolutely. And I think if you restrict the size of the field, you're gonna find that developers are not gonna find it worth their while.
That would
Which is
be up to
gonna
the
force them
developers,
out.
but I can tell you right now, the town would get minimal revenue from a solar field. They would get the money raised for the property taxes would go from, if it was agricultural or it was open land, it would go to regular rates. But per acre, for the solar equipment, you're gonna get less than $1,000 a year per acre.
But it is understood on the other side though too, is
Mhm.
that people do own land and serve land and.
Thank you, because, yeah, it's my
You make
opportunity
money
to
off
make
that,
some
so-
money, not, it shouldn't be just the town's interest and they're making money. Yeah, because I have to pay the taxes on it, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Is that it for solar? Do you want us to move on, or is there more questions?
Any other questions about it? Anything?
So the next date for you to remember is 4 February, the junior, senior high school, and it's either yes or no for the moratorium. That's the only thing you have to do at this point in time. Now, it's the next version. I see you smiling.
I mean, why?
Why? We're gonna put you in the hot seat, Kathy.
The chair is calling the clerk of the town, Kathy Kelly Regan, to the front, please.
You want a copy of this? Your fee schedule?
Well, I know what the fee schedule is. Kathy Kelly Regan, 1 Cold Hill Drive.
I know.
And I'm the town clerk. So I am proposing to raise the clerk fees. They haven't been changed since 2003, so that's 16 years. I am definitely one of the lowest communities on fees. So I basically want to just bring it up to, step it up where pretty much the majority of the other communities are charging. It takes time, and I just think that, you know, a couple extra $1,000 to the general fund would be something that would service the community. So that's why, you know, that I want to do the increase on the fees. Some of these things I've never even actually done. The majority of the fees that I actually handle are the vitals, birth, death, marriage records, correcting records of those such. But there's other things that are in the Massachusetts laws that we just need to have on record so that when the event comes that there are, you know, something to come on that fee, like the podiatry, and if a doctor came in. I mean, at least we have something, you know, on paper that we can charge to, like the other communities. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Right now, I don't, but I don't see where these are unreasonable fees.
No, they're actually, I mean, they're still low.
They're still low.
They're still low, but I don't want to jump it up to, like, if you go to, the cities are usually $15 to $20 for certifies, Boston's 30. And, you know, and there's even actually some of the smaller communities that are 15 on the vitals, you know, certifies, but you know, I figure going up to 10 would be pretty reasonable. And it's easy not to make change. You know, it's not the-
Any questions? No?
Okay,
Thank you, Ken.
thank you.
Okay, and just to let everybody know, these are the only two items on the 4 February special town meeting that requires a hearing because there are changes to the bylaws. There'll be about 4 other articles in addition to this, for a total of 6, I believe, gentlemen? I think there, so there'll be a total of 6 items or 6 articles that will be addressed on the 4 February special town meeting. So it's just not these 2. So I don't want you to think these are the only 2 items. There are some other financial articles on the agenda that do not require a hearing.
Is that it?
Yeah, I guess so. See what you think.
Yeah, all set.
I think I'm all set.
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I will second Glenn's motion to adjourn the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.